welcome to this presentation. In this video, I'm going to share with you the microwave amplifier design concepts. Signal amplification is one of the most basic and prevalent circuit functions in modern RF and microwave systems. Early microwave amplifiers relied on tubes such as klystron and traveling wave tubes or solid-state reflection amplifiers based on the negative resistance characteristics of tunnel or varactor diodes. However, due to the dramatic improvements and innovations in solid-state technology that have occurred since the 1970s, most RF and microwave amplifiers today use transistor devices such as SA-BJTs, gallium arsenide and silicon germanium HBTs, silicon MOSFETs and gallium arsenide MESFETs or gallium arsenide, so on and so on. So microwave transistor amplifiers are rugged and low cost and reliable and can be easily integrated in both hybrid and monolithic integrated circuitry. Transistor amplifiers can be used at frequencies in excess of 100 GHz in a wide range of applications requiring small size, low noise figure, broad bandwidth and medium to high power capacity. So although microtubes are still useful for very high power and very high frequency applications, continuing improvement in the performance of microwave transistors is steadily reducing the need of the microwave tubes. So now we'll begin with some general definitions of two-port power gain that are useful for amplifier design, and then we'll discuss the subject of the stability. So these results will then be applied to single-stage transistor amplifiers, including designs for maximum gain, specified gain and low noise figure. So, and now let us take the two-port power gains. Here, consider an arbitrary two-port network characterized by its scattering matrix and connected to source load impedance ZS and ZL as shown in this figure. You can see in this figure. Now, we will derive the expressions for three types of power gains in terms of the scattering parameters of two-port networks and reflection coefficients. Tau S and Tau L of the source and the load, where Tau S is the reflection coefficient of the source and Tau L is the reflection coefficient of the load. The power gain G is given by PL divided by Pin, which is the ratio of the power dissipated in the load ZL to the power delivered to the input of the two-port network. This gain is independent of ZS, although the characteristics of some active devices may be dependent on ZS. And the available power gain GA is given by P available divided by P AVS, PAVN divided by PAVS, which is the ratio of the power available from the two-port network to the power available from the source. This assumes conjugate matching of both the source and the load and depends on ZS but not ZL. And the transducer power gain is given by GT, that is equal to PL divided by PAVS, which is the ratio of the power delivered to the load to the power available from the source. This depends on both ZS and ZL. So these definitions differ primarily in the way the source and the load are matched to the two-port network, and if the input and output are both conjugately matched to the two-port device, then the gain is maximized and G is equal to GA is equal to GT. So with reference to this figure, we can write the reflection coefficients looking toward the load as Tau L is equal to ZL minus Z0 divided by ZL plus Z0. While the reflection coefficient seen looking toward the source can be written as Tau S is equal to ZS minus Z0 divided by ZS plus Z0, right? So in general, the input impedance of the terminated two-port network will be mismatched with the reflection coefficient given by Tau n, which can be determined by using a single flow graph and by the equation terms from the definition of the scattering parameters and the fact that V2 plus is equal to Tau L into V2 minus. So V1 minus can be written as S11 V1 plus S12 V2 plus, and V2 minus can be written as S21 V1 plus S22 V2 plus. So eliminating V2 minus and solving for V1 minus by V1 plus, we can write Tau n is equal to V1 minus by V1 plus, which is equal to Zn minus Z0 divided by Zn plus Z0. Whereas Tau out is given by V2 minus divided by V2 plus, which can be written as S22 plus S12 into S21 into Tau S divided by 1 minus S11 into Tau S, right? So by voltage division, V1 can be written as Vs into Zn divided by Zs plus Zin, and Zn is equal to Z0 into 1 plus tau in divided by 1 minus tau in. Substituting these values and solving for V1 plus is given by Vs by 2 into 1 minus tau s divided by 1 minus tau s into tau in. If peak values are assumed for all voltages, the average power delivered to the network will be written as P in, which is equal to 1 by 2 Z0 into V1 plus the whole square into 1 minus tau in the square. And the power delivered to the load can be written as PL is equal to V2 minus the whole square divided by 2 Z0 into 1 minus tau the whole square, right? So, and the solving for V2 minus and substituting this equation will get PL as V1 squared divided by 2 Z0 into S21 squared into 1 minus tau square divided by 1 minus S22 into tau square. So, therefore, the power gain can be expressed as G is equal to PL divided by P in, and can be written as S21 squared into 1 minus tau squared divided by 1 minus tau in squared into 1 minus S22 into tau squared. And the power available from the source PAVS is the maximum power that can be delivered to the network. This occurs when input impedance of the terminated network is conjugately matched with the source impedance. So PAVS is given by P in at tau in is equal to tau s. Similarly, PAVN can be written as PL at tau L is equal to tau out. So, tau in must be evaluated for tau L is equal to tau out, and it can be shown that 1 minus tau s into tau in the whole square at tau L is equal to tau out conjugate. That can be written as which is equal to 1 minus S11 tau s the whole square into 1 minus tau out square the whole square divided by 1 minus S22 into tau out conjugate the whole square. Therefore, we obtain the available power gain GA as GA is equal to PAVN divided by PAVS, which is given by S21 squared into 1 minus tau s squared divided by 1 minus S11 into tau s the whole squared into 1 minus tau out squared. And GT, that is the transducer power gain, is given by PL divided by PAVS, which is written as S21 squared into 1 minus tau s squared into 1 minus tau L square divided by 1 minus tau s tau in the whole square into 1 minus S22 tau L the whole square, right? So, another special case is the unilateral transducer power gain GTU, where S12 is equal to 0. So, this non-reciprocal characteristic is approximately true for many transistor devices. And now let us take a single stage microwave transistor amplifier, which can be modeled as shown in this figure, where matching networks are used for both sides of the transistors to transform the input and output impedance Z0 to the source and the load impedance Zs and ZL. And the most useful gain definitions for amplifier design is the transducer power gain, which accounts for both the source and the load mismatch. So, we can separate effective gain factors for the input matching network, the transistor itself, and the output load matching network as given by GS is equal to 1 minus tau s the whole square divided by 1 minus tau in into tau s the whole square. And G0 is equal to S21 square and GL is equal to 1 minus tau L the whole square divided by 1 minus S22 into tau L square. The overall transducer gain is then GS, GL, G0, and the effective gains GS and GL of the matching networks may be greater than unity, and this is because the unmatched transistors would incur power loss due to reflections of the input and output of the transistors, and the matching sections can reduce these losses. So, if the transistor is unilateral, then so that S12 is equal to 0, and we can write GS as 1 minus tau s square by 1 minus S11 into tau s square, right? And G0 is equal to S21 the whole square, and GL as 1 minus tau L square divided by 1 minus S22 into tau L square. And now let us discuss about the stability factors of this amplifier design. And this oscillation is possible if either the input or output port impedance has a negative real part. This would imply that tau in is greater than 1 or tau out is greater than 1, because tau in and tau out depend on the source and load impedance matching networks. The stability of the amplifier depends on tau s and tau l as presented by the matching networks. So thus we define two types of stability, that is unconditional stability and conditional stability. The network is unconditionally stable if tau in is less than 1 and tau out is less than 1 for all passive source and load impedance. And the conditional stability, that is the network is conditionally stable if tau in is less than 1 and tau out is less than 1 only for a certain range of passive source and load impedance. This case is also referred to as potentially unstable. And we can note that the stability condition of an amplifier is usually frequency dependent, since the input and output matching networks generally depend on frequency. It is therefore possible for an amplifier to be stable at its design frequency but unstable at other frequencies. So careful amplifier design should consider this possibility. We must also point out that the stability is limited to two-port amplifier circuits of this type, and where the scattering parameters of the active device can be measured without oscillations over the frequency band of interest. The rigorous general treatment of the stability requires that the network scattering parameters have no poles in the right half complex frequency plane, in addition to the condition that tau in is less than 1 and tau out is less than 1, and this can be a difficult assessment in practice. But for a special case where the scattering parameters are known to be pole free and the stability conditions are adequate. Okay, and applying the above requirements gives the relations that tau in is equal to S11 plus S12 into S12 tau L divided by 1 minus S22 into tau L, which is less than 1, and tau out is equal to S22 plus S12 into S21 into tau S divided by 1 minus S11 into tau S, which is less than 1. Thank you.